How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Starts and Sits Quarterback Edition, Week 9. I am your host, Justin Wright. This is 14P Fantasy. Before we get into it, guys, subscribe to the channel, drop a like if you can. Follow us over on Twitter at 14P_fantasy. Catch me over there at Justin_14P, as you see at the bottom there. All right, we got 5 guys, 3 starts, 2 sits. Let's get into them. Number 1, we got Kirk Cousins versus Baltimore. And naturally, you hear Kirk Cousins versus a good defense, and you say, well, this is going to be a disaster. And typically, you're right, especially if it's a primetime game. That's like clockwork. But Baltimore the last month is the 26th most difficult matchup. They're a very plus matchup for fantasy quarterbacks right now. So I feel like you have to roll Kirk Cousins out there. The offense is going to look better with a fully healthy Dalvin Cook. That's a huge piece of this. You know, he's back. He looks to be himself again. And another week removed should be a huge part of this. The less Kirk Cousins has to do, the better. So if Dalvin Cook is able to move them into the red zone and Kirk Cousins can take advantage with dump offs and, and some easy red zone touchdowns, that's how he gets to be a top 12 quarterback this week. And really, even his bad games, he hasn't truly broken your back. You know what I mean? He's not going under 10 points. He's not turning the ball over a ton. He's taking care of it. So I get it. It's gross. I do think he is a back-end QB1 this week. 4 out of 7 games, he's throwing multiple touchdowns. That's how he gets there. He's going to have to do it this week, especially against Baltimore if they want to win. All right, on to Joe Burrow. And this seems to be taking people kind of by surprise how good, just flat out amazing Joe Burrow has been. If you look at what he's done so far through 8 games, 7 out of 8 weeks, he has thrown for multiple touchdowns. 7 out of 8 weeks, he has scored 20-plus points. 6 out of 8 weeks, he's thrown for 250 yards. He is a locked and loaded top 7, 8 QB pretty much every week. And now you factor in the matchup against the Cleveland Browns. And I get it. It's a divisional game. There's a little bit of extra juice there. The Browns have been the second easiest matchup the last month of the season, especially, for fantasy quarterbacks. Let me be clear on that. So Joe Burrow in a very positive matchup should have a great day. Expect 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. Maybe he gets over 300 if this turns into a shootout and the Browns learn how to run an offense. So we'll see. But Joe Burrow, if you have him, you have to start him. Again, the only guys you're not starting him over are the obvious ones, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons of the world. All right, to our first sit here, we have Daniel Jones versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Raiders, they're not a bad matchup, to be honest. They're 16th most difficult over the last month. And again, that's a middle of the road. That's not something you avoid just because of the matchup. But you also avoid Daniel Jones because he doesn't have Sterling Shepard. Kenny Galladay is a huge maybe this week. So it's really Kadarius Toney, Evan Ingram. Maybe you get Saquon Barkley back. But even then, he's not going to be fully healthy. There just aren't guys for him to get the ball to. And that's what I'm worried about. He hasn't broken 20-plus points in a month. He has 1 20-plus rushing yard game in a month. And that was the huge appeal early on, was designed runs, a rushing floor, some rushing touchdowns as well. All of that seems to have vanished, which, for Daniel Jones, a guy that isn't really a prolific passer, he needs that rushing work to stay relevant. And we just haven't seen it in the last month. So if you're looking to him in a decent matchup, I'd go somewhere else. I think he's just outside of the top 12 QBs and in a 12-team league. That's what you're looking for, obviously. So Daniel Jones, if you got him still, sit him down. All right, Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's been great outside of last week, and that's what concerns me. The matchup itself is terrible. The New Orleans Saints are an absolute wagon on defense. And without Calvin Ridley, this offense looked bad. Teams can just focus on Kyle Pitts, and they don't have to worry about anybody else truly breaking their back. So it's just, without Ridley, I need to see Matt Ryan be successful. And that's the reason he's really a sit. You factor in the matchup and, he cut his hand last week and whatever else. But it's just I need to see him do it without Calvin Ridley before I trust him. I'll play Kirk Cousins over Matt Ryan for sure. I'll play Tua, guys like that. Maybe even Justin Fields I'll throw in over Matt Ryan now that he had a very relevant fantasy game finally. So it's tough, but you got to sit Matt Ryan down this week. And our last guy on the list, we have Tua Tagovailoa versus the Houston Texans. I could simply just stop at it's the Houston Texans and, we could end the video right here and you'd agree. But when you also look at, another week of Devontae Parker getting healthy, who was a great target last week, he's starting to raise his rushing floor as well. Over the last 3 weeks, his last 3 starts, he has either rushed for 20 yards or 2 additional points, or he's found the end zone. So he's starting to add some rushing work to what has become a pretty high floor as a passer. And, if he finds the end zone last week through the air, he's over 20 points. So I expect in a much better matchup, not playing the Buffalo Bills, I expect Tua to bounce back. Another guy that is a borderline top 10 QB. If I'm going between him and Kirk Cousins because they're in that same range, I'm taking Tua over Kirk Cousins, then I'm taking Joe Burrow over everybody on this list by a wide margin. But that is all we have for you guys. If you have other questions, start, sit, streaming QB stuff, any other position, really, drop it below. We'll answer what we can. As always, subscribe to the YouTube. Give us a follow over on Twitter at 14P_fantasy, at Justin_14P for my personal account there. Drop a like, comment, again, all that good stuff. As always, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.